And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Stop Mass Hysteria, Michael Savage.
It's the Savage Nation. Lou Pate filling in for Dr. Savage. He'll be back next week. In the meantime, I encourage you to go to michaelsavage.com for all the latest headlines and subscribe to the Savage newsletter. While there, pick up a copy of Dr. Savage's latest New York Times bestseller. It's called Stop Mass Hysteria. It's in stores now, and I love the fact that his books keep going to the top of the New York Times bestseller list. It drives liberals crazy, especially those over at the New York Times. Welcome, Lou Pate, here with you. Great to be here today. Great to be on the air today. Gosh, there's so much going on. We're going to get to all of it. A shooting at a California bar in Thousand Oaks, California, 40 miles or so north of Los Angeles. I know the area well from when I lived in Sherman Oaks. Used to ride my Harley Davidson up into that neck of the woods. A beautiful, serene town, one that on most years ranks as the number one place for no crime. It's the least crime in the country in Thousand Oaks, California. And here we have 12 dead, including a 29-year veteran of the Ventura Sheriff's Department up there, a gentleman by the name of Ron Hellas, father of one. The shooter, a former Marine, armed with a Glock 21 45 handgun with an extended magazine. For reasons still unknown, used a smoke bomb at first as a diversion, killed a security guard, bouncer type, outside. Went in, made a right-hand turn into the bar, again, for reasons unknown, and then opened fire. There are a million stories coming out of the bar, those of bravery, those of heroism, most notably the deceased sheriff's sergeant there, Ron Hellas, but more as well. We'll get to some of those a little later. We're not going to say the name of the shooter, okay? It's out there. It's in the news. If you want to find it, you can, because I think that a lot of these guys are doing this now to go out in a proverbial blaze of glory, to get their name in lights and to have somebody have a Lifetime movie about them or write a book. But I will tell you this. The Democratic Party is very sad today at this shooting. The left-wing media is very sad today at this shooting. No, not because of the tragic loss of life. It's the Rahm Emanuel school of thought of never let a crisis go to waste. He didn't use an AR-15. He didn't use any other semi-automatic long gun or rifle. He used a handgun that millions and millions, thankfully, of Americans have in their homes right now as I speak. And trust me, the Democratic Party, the lemmings in the media, fake news over at CNN, fake news over at MSNBC, they don't care about the victims of these types of crimes. They don't care about the worshipers at the temple, at the synagogue a couple of weeks ago. They don't care about these people here. All they care about is how can we blame Trump? That's all they care about. How can we make this stick to Trump? And that's why all of the reporting you see out of the newspapers, the left-wing newspapers, whether it's the New York Times or the Bozo Post, the Washington Post, or, clowns like Jim Acosta and Peter Alexander at MSNBC and so on and so forth, because it's not about delivering news to the people. It's not about informing you about a tragedy. It's not about looking into it and researching it and doing investigative journalism and finding out how maybe this can be prevented. Well, mass shootings can't be prevented. That is just a fact. It's about how do we make this stick to President Trump. They're already blaming him for this mass shooting. It's a sad tragedy for the families, many of some who have not been notified yet, whether their people are still alive or not. So it's one of those things where the media looks past humanity. No compassion. Their hatred, their quadrupled hatred for Trump just goes so deep. And it really makes them pathetic. We're going to talk about look at me, Acosta a little later in the show. He lost his press credentials to the White House. And, as Dr. Savage has said, he has no right to be in the White House. He has a right to free speech. He could stand on the highest hilltop and scream hateful things about Donald Trump, but there is no right to be in the White House. So it's truly an amazing phenomenon, the way the midterms, which we're going to speak about as well. There's numerous recounts going on in Florida where I sit. It's all about bringing down this president. Every story, the backbone, the foundation of it in the presentation of the media is about bringing him down. We have the shooter in California, the murderer, okay? It's obviously a situation of mental illness. When you look into the history, police had been to his house a few times, PTSD stories coming out from former roommates. Obviously, to go into a bar and do something like this, there's something wrong with this guy. He's getting drugs. Is he getting it from the VA? We don't know. That's speculation on my part. But if the Veterans Administration is giving these guys drugs just to make them go away so they can't be bothered, so they numb them and medicate them, they're not doing them a disservice. It is not good for them. Dr. Savage has made that point many, many times. I'm aware of situations like this as well. Okay, and the police can't or won't do anything about it. This person has been examined and then determined that he wasn't dangerous, because nobody can be bothered. Nobody can be bothered until something like this happens. Okay, when you talk to the police, they say, "Oh, we can't do something like this until he does something or she does something." When you talk to doctors, they say, "Oh, we can't do something until he or she does something." And then you all have to sit back and wait, and you have to live on edge. And when you take your dog out at night, you have to look up the street to see if crazy is going to come and whack you. Or you have to watch what you're saying when you go in a bar, because this nut who has frequented this bar and got beat up in a bar in 2015 is going to come in blazing. It is truly an amazing phenomenon. It is a huge problem in our society, mental illness and the violence that comes with it. Yet it's not about that. Nobody cares about the mentally ill. Nobody cares about our unhinged veterans. All it is how can we make this about Trump? So we have the shooting. The media is going to try to make it about Trump. They already are. We have Jeff Sessions out as the Attorney General. The acting Attorney General is Matthew Whitaker. He is in there. Trust me, folks, this has everything to do, the media's analysis of it is all about Robert Mueller, okay? It's all about somehow saying, oh, Trump knows that they're about to get him, and he's trying to fire the people in charge. No. I have nothing against Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions seems like a good Southern gentleman, the first senator to support Donald Trump when he announced his candidacy, but he didn't show up for the job. You don't show up for the job. You don't show up for work every day, you're going to get fired. He didn't do his job. It's as simple as that. It's not complicated. But now we have Joe Manchin, tough guy, senator, reelected in West Virginia, saying we're facing a constitutional crisis. Joe Manchin's going nuts now because he's brave. He's got 6 weeks. He has 6 years ahead of him now where he won't have to face re-election. So all of a sudden, the meek and demure Joe Manchin all of a sudden has his beer muscles on, and he's shooting off his mouth saying we're on the verge of a constitutional crisis due to Sessions' firing. No, this is all about the Mueller investigation, which has no teeth. I've said it many times when here. There's no there's no crumbs. I could give you every analogy you want, every anecdote you want. There's nothing there. But it's all about getting Trump. And now we have Nancy Pelosi possibly going to be the Speaker of the House, midterm elections, Democrats taking the House. I think they're up plus 13 or 14 seats, something like that. They were plus 37 the other night. And is there going to be a civil war in the Democratic Party? This is something that nobody wants to talk about. She's already anointed herself because I think the fix is in. And they call Republicans the party of old white guys. This is, let's see, Chuck Schumer, senator from New York, is about 77, right? 78. And I'm not being an ageist. I'm just citing the obvious. And Pelosi's like 78 8. I think amazing. Maxine Waters, I think she's 145 at last check. Truly, truly amazing. But it's not about helping the American people. It's about attacking Trump when they take over the House. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg, poor thing, Supreme Court Justice, fell down, broke 3 ribs. That's never good. At 85 years old, it's even worse. I see people on Twitter politicizing this, making jokes, wishing her ill so that Trump can get another pick. Look, I would like Ruth Bader Ginsburg to retire and step down. I certainly don't want to see her ill, don't want to see her die, but she should have stepped down before. I would have liked to have seen her step down before this, but we wish her a speedy recovery. But trust me, the Dems are going to prop her up on the Supreme Court like it's Weekend at Bernie's. They're going to make her go out feet first, poor thing. But again, 3 broken ribs, don't wish that on anybody. Well, maybe a few people, but not Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and we wish her a speedy recovery. So there's a lot on tap, and there's the Florida recall. Now they're looking at a possible recall in the governor's race. Come on, Gillum. Have some class, man. Have some dignity. You already conceded. Don't pull a Stacey Abrams up there in Georgia where you're digging in. And also the Rick Scott, Bill Nelson race is under review. There's going to be a recount there. They must be using the Miami Herald printing press to come up with new votes for the Democrats down here in South Florida. So one of the questions I have for you is, do you think Florida will wind up in Dem hands if the recounts continue? And in reference to Nancy Pelosi, who will be the bigger threat to the Trump administration? Pelosi, Waters, Schiff, or the radicals on the left? Or is that redundant? Aren't they the radicals on the left? Truly an amazing phenomenon. And I mentioned earlier, Jim Acosta. After witnessing the reaction one day after the midterms, do you think the tone will ramp up or quiet down? We had a split decision basically in the midterms, and, Nancy Pelosi said what she had to say. She wants to work with Trump. Trump said what he had to say. He wants to work with them. The media couldn't have this. Why do you think Acosta pulled that stunt? Number one, he wanted to be the story, which is the number one faux pas by any journalist, but it was also to be a flint and ignite the flame. That's all it was about. So truly an amazing phenomenon. And as I mentioned, Jeff Sessions is out. Will the new acting Attorney General, Matt Whitaker, stop the Mueller investigation, or do you expect Mueller to wrap it up soon? I say just let him go. I've been saying that for years because there's nothing there. They're going to come up with the same conclusions. Yes, the Russians tried to influence our election. Well, they've been trying to do that since 1945. And we stood in their way, blah, blah, blah. No collusion, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, that and a lot more coming up. I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, again, I can't wish her well enough, but what do you think's going to happen if RBG, the notorious RBG, there's actually a book out about her called that, can no longer perform her functions? I really do think it'll be a Weekend at Bernie's thing. So that and a lot more coming up here on the Savage Nation. My name is Lou Pate. The phone number, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Remember, go to michaelsavage.com. Get the latest tome, Stop Mass Hysteria. From what I'm seeing out there in the news, the hysteria will never stop because the Democrats and the lemmings in the media that crawl at their ankles simply cannot get over the fact that President Donald J. Trump is the president. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. You are listening to The Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Take 1 atom of nitrogen and bond it with 1 atom of oxygen. Boom, you just created nitric oxide, a miracle molecule your own body makes that fuels your cardiovascular health, keeping you vibrant. But as we all age, our bodies need help generating more natural nitric oxide. Super Beets by Human has harnessed the power of nutrient-enriched beets and created a superfood that helps your body make more nitric oxide on its own. The core philosophy of Human is to develop heart-healthy products for your body. 1 teaspoon of Super Beets daily tends to support your cardiovascular health and blood pressure levels, giving you natural energy without the need of a quick caffeine kick or sugar high. We're talking real, healthful, natural energy. So call 800-481-0504 or go to savagelovesbeats.com and find out how you can get a free 30-day supply of Super Beats and free shipping with your first purchase. I want you to feel the 1 + 1 = boom effect of Super Beats. Just call 800-481-0504 or savagelovesbeats.com.
Bernie and Sid in the morning. The new show. Weekday mornings 6 to 10.
Now on Echo devices.
Mischief and more. 77 WABC.
It's the Savage Nation. Welcome back. Lou Pate here with you in for Dr. Savage. He will return next week. We're talking about the tragedy of the massacre in California, the firing of Jeff Sessions, the Civil War with Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats. A lot of the younger ones don't want her in there. Look at me, Acosta, and his sense of entitlement, had his credentials taken away. Dems trying to steal races in Florida. But I want to play this soundbite for you. This is Bernie Sanders on the firing of Jeff Sessions. Clip number 8, please, guys.
I hope very much that Trump does not believe that by firing Sessions today that he is going to interfere with that investigation. Because if he does, that's a very serious offense. That has to do with obstruction of justice, which I personally believe is an impeachable offense.
There are very few people on the planet who are less repugnant, who are more repugnant, than Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders said this about the governor's races in Georgia and in Florida, where I live. He said, and I quote, I think you know there are a lot of white folks out there who are not necessarily racist, who felt uncomfortable for the first time in their lives about whether or not they wanted to vote for an African American, end quote. I mean, that is not even racist. It's just ignorant and stupid. We just came off 8 years of a black president, an African American president, for those of you who are offended. It's truly, has he been sleeping? Has he been spending all that money that his wife allegedly stole from the university? I mean, what is it with this guy? And why doesn't the media ever call him on this? With the election and the 2-term presidency of Barack Obama, all that stuff is out the window. But it hit me. It hit me. They have nothing else. The Democrats have no platform. They have no plan for you. They have no ideas for health care, for the economy, for housing, for anything. So they just keep going back to the same old, which is racism. No. Millions upon millions of people voted in Florida. Millions upon millions of blacks in Florida voted for a white candidate. It's not about racism. But when you have no other argument, that's all they have. So Bernie, go away. You're really repugnant. Hey, my name is Lou Pate. You are listening to The Savage Nation. Go to michaelsavage.com. Order your copy of Stop Mass Hysteria. This is The Savage Nation.
Join the
Savage Nation, Lou Pate here with you along with Team Savage. Dr. Savage will be back next week. In the meantime, go to michaelsavage.com, get the latest headlines, and subscribe to the Savage newsletter. Pick up a copy of Dr. Savage's New York Times bestseller. It's called Stop Mass Hysteria. It's in stores now. We've been talking about the tragic shooting. A guy with PTSD, former Marine, goes off the rails. But the problem is, like all of the others, he was on their radar. They know about him. The police had been to his house, overly medicated by the VA or whoever, and then he snaps. And as is always the case, they say, we can't do anything until he does something. That is code for everybody doesn't feel like doing anything. Everybody is lazy and cannot be bothered, and then they just hope that something doesn't happen. Again, with the VA over-medicating these guys, giving them drugs, it's just not good for them. It's as simple as that. Dr. Savage has made this point dozens of times right here on the Savage Nation, but sadly enough, nobody wants to listen to the grand advice. Let's get to the phones. Line 2, KBET. Frank, welcome to the Savage Nation with Lou Pate.
All
was working a construction job in Arizona, and a 27-year-old Marine was on some drugs, and he jumped in the dirt and started crying and having serious problems. They give them psychotropic drugs that'll make even a healthy person.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, you know what? They give them these drugs, and maybe it could make even a sane person crazy. And listen, I'm not belittling anybody's service. Anybody who volunteers, I tip my hat to them. These guys and gals who have seen action, we don't know what they have seen. I can only imagine the horrors. Actually, I can't even imagine the horrors. So with that in mind, though, when they come back and they're damaged goods, the way to deal with it is not just to numbify them with whatever they're prescribing to them. Truly an amazing phenomenon. But we have a lot going on as well. You have the shooting. We have Jeff Sessions. We have Jim Acosta losing his credentials. Of course, the media jumping up and down, crying free speech, so on and so forth. Was it right or wrong for the administration to yank Acosta's credentials? Remember, he's a repeat offender. They should have taken them out away from him a long, long time ago. There's probably a reason why Jim Acosta's estranged from his wife right now. Could you imagine him at home? Like, if he doesn't like what's for dinner, he'll hold the plate the way he was holding the microphone away from that girl. I mean, it's truly an amazing phenomenon that Jim Acosta, a clown prince of the West Wing, thinks that he is more important than getting a message out to the people from the President of the United States. He should actually just show up in a diaper with a pacifier. It's a joke. And you have clowns like Peter Alexander, who I mentioned earlier, at MSNBC, defending him. What are you defending? What are you defending? A petulant child throwing a fit in the White House press room because he wants the president to fight with him? Please. Jeff Zucker, man, you got a new knee. you got a new knee. Get some new talent over there. Let's go to line 1, WABC. Steve, welcome to the Savage Nation with Lou Pate. How are you?
How are you? I reported this morning when I woke up and saw that Mr. Acosta was suspended from the White House. If that was a Fox News reporter, the media spin from the left would have been that he assaulted the girl.
Exactly. Do we have anybody care if they banned Fox News, if they took away their credentials for inappropriate behavior, or any other, Newsmax or any other conservative news outlet? Would they care? No. But because it's one of their own, they go to town. And, like I said, this guy's, he's done this many, many times. He's kind of become a joke there.
Just the way he manhandled her, they would have been all over it, that he pushed her and touched her arm. And then, he was just belligerent. And I honestly thought Trump was going to come off the dais and hit him.
Now, that would have been something. That would have been something to see. I think he wanted to. He handled it pretty well. And I think what you're saying is when he walked away from the podium, he was really maintaining his composure. So, hey, but thank you very much. Do appreciate it. Hey, let's listen to this. We have some time here. This is a little long. It's like a minute and a half. But this is CNN blowhard Jim Acosta attacking Trump at the press conference.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to challenge you on one of the statements that you made in the tail end of the campaign in the midterms.
Here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in this election to try to keep...
I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. They have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process.
But your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
Well, that's true. But they weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood. Right. These were people. This was an actual, it happened a few days ago. And
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President,
that's
enough. I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have...
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter. Go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts.
Well, I'm not a big fan of yours either, so
I understand.
To be honest.
There you go. There's Peter Alexander at the end. Oh, Jim Acosta, be my friend. Buy me a beer at the bar afterwards. I defended you with our bully president. Unbelievable. Peter Alexander was in Seattle when I was in Seattle, and let's just say I could do a show about him. But we have that, and we also have the issue Ruth Bader Ginsburg, as I mentioned, very sad, falling down, breaking 3 ribs. Will she be able to continue her functions as a Supreme Court justice? We wish her a speedy recovery. We wish her health and happiness and a long life. But what do you think was going to happen if Ruth Bader Ginsburg can no longer perform her functions? This, folks, is why elections are important. This is why it's important for all of us to get out and vote. You think about, they lost the House, the Republicans did, but they kept the Senate, added a few seats, might be adding a few more after the recounts, and this is why it's important. We won't have a Blasey Ford situation again where people come in, as she did, and in my opinion, lied through her teeth and made stuff up about the nominee, Brett Kavanaugh. Actually, we've had 2 of the 3 accusers now admit that they lie. So we're just waiting for the third one, Blasey Ford, to come forward and admit that she fabricated. This is as an aside. Brett Kavanaugh in a GoFundMe page was raised $600,000 for his defense, his legal fees. He donated that to Catholic charities. That's an amazing thing. I tip my hat to him. But I'm not surprised at that. Blasey Ford, she raised $860,000. Hasn't given a penny of it to anybody, but records in Santa Cruz show that she has applied for licensing and certificates and permits for renovations on her house. How convenient. Will Nancy Pelosi be the speaker is another deal. The young Democrats in the House want no part of her. The old guard wants her in there. Let's get back to the phones. 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. So much going on. I want to try to get to all of it. Who do you think is going to be the bigger threat to the administration? Is it going to be Pelosi, Waters, Schiff, or radicals on the left? Let's get to line 3, WABC. Dan, thank you for holding.
Hello.
Hey, Dan, you're on the Savage Nation.
Oh, hi. 2 things I want to say. For the left, there's 2 rules on the left that really matter. Number 1, whatever they accuse you of, it's something they're doing. And number 2, they never recognize accomplishment in anything. They don't want solutions to problems. They want problems. They can run on problems. I think what happened Tuesday was a big defeat for them because for the Democrats, they have now totally boxed themselves out of any input on Supreme Court justices. And it's their own doing that did it.
And not just that, Dan. Supreme Court justices, obviously, that's the centerpiece of the dais there. But you have your district court judges and all the other federal judges that are going to be appointed now. It's going to be a freight train rolling through of conservative appointments, and there's nothing they can do about it. They want to get all mired down in the House, on the House side with phony investigations. Let them waste their time. But was it Senator Graham and also Senator McConnell, I'm not a fan of either one, to be honest, warned them that they did it in the 90s and it didn't work out too well for them.
Well, they could follow CNN over the cliff if they choose, but that's what it's going to be. That's what it's going to amount. And the way they're going right now, if they waste their time, when they have an opportunity to do something, I think Trump's going to end up beating them anyway, because if they work with him, he'll look good.
Well, let me put it this way, Dan. Like, for instance, we're talking Pelosi, the House, the investigation, but the Sessions being fired, okay, and Joe Manchin calling it a constitutional crisis. That is all about the Mueller investigation. But Dan, if they want to get mired down in investigations, I think they already shot themselves in the foot. And what I mean by that is, the country is over-exhausted with the Russia investigation. Everybody knows that there are leakers in the White House. There's leakers at the corrupt Department of Justice. There's leakers at the corrupt FBI. That's my opinion that these are all corrupt, not the Savage Nation, my Lou Pate. But if there was anything there, it would have been leaked to CNN. Shifty Shift would have leaked it. But I think they've shot themselves in the foot, because they've let all the air out of their balloon already, because people are tired of this. But Dan, WABC, thank you very much. Do appreciate it. Got a lot going on. We do have that tragic shooting, and I'd like to know from you, the listeners to the Savage Nation, what do you think of these mass shootings? Why do you think they keep happening? And what can be done, if anything, to stop them? You got the issue of Jeff Sessions. What do you think it's all about? Do you think this is a constitutional crisis? And do you think there is anything to the Mueller probe? Should Matthew Whitaker, the acting attorney general, step back from the Mueller case? And then we have the fight for the gavel with Nancy Pelosi being Speaker of the House. After witnessing the reaction one day after the midterms, do you think the tone is going to be ramped up or quiet down? Trump said he'll work with them. They said they'll work with Trump. I don't believe it. We're going to get to all of that when we come back here. 855-400-SAVAGE. My name is Lou Pate. This is the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation.
Call now. Cyber criminals can attack your laptop, tablet, or smartphone without warning, without you even knowing. Or they can steal your identity, and you may not realize it until it's too late. And that's why LifeLock Identity Theft Protection now includes the power of Norton Security to help protect your identity on devices. I have both. LifeLock uses proprietary technology to help detect a range of threats to your identity. How about your personal info for sale on the dark web? Well, Norton Security protects against online threats like ransomware or malware. And if there's a problem, LifeLock with Norton has agents who will work to fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft or cybercrime or monitor transactions at all businesses. But new LifeLock with Norton Security provides more detection and more protection against cyber threats. Go to LifeLock.com or call 1-800-LifeLock and use promo code SAVAGE for an additional 10% off your first year. Plus, you get a $25 Amazon gift card with annual enrollment. That's LifeLock.com, promo code SAVAGE for 10% off and a $25 Amazon gift card. LifeLock.com, code SAVAGE. Terms apply.
WABCRadio.com. Log on. Get more. WABCRadio.com.
It's the Savage Nation. Lou Pate here with you, along with Team Savage. Dr. Savage will return on Monday. In the meantime, go to michaelsavage.com for all the latest headlines. Subscribe to the Savage newsletter, which, by the way, is delivered free to your inbox. And while there, pick up a copy of Dr. Savage's New York Times bestseller, Stop Mass Hysteria, which is in stores now. I don't know if the media wants to stop being hysterical. I think they get some kind of sick thrill out of it. Lou Pate here with you. We've got a lot going on. The tragic massacre in Thousand Oaks, California. Jeff Sessions, all of a sudden everybody cares about him. He was fired because he did not do his job. We have Representative Nadler from New York complaining and crying foul that Jeff Sessions was fired. But as producer Jim Verdi, I got to give you credit, Jim. I know you're a low-profile guy, but Jim had found a tweet of Representative Nadler from, when was this? March 7th of 2017. It says, and I quote, "Good morning. In case anyone forgot, Jeff Sessions must resign as AG. He cannot possibly lead DOJ to promote trust and rule of law." That was tweeted out by @Rep Jerry Nadler's Twitter account. Boy, the internet never, ever goes away. Let's get back to the phones. Let's go to line 3, Clint, WAAV, North Carolina. David, welcome to the Savage Nation with Lou Pate. Hey, David, you're on the air.
Yes, concerning all of these mass shootings, I think it's a twofold thing. I think people have just gotten they're going over the edge, and I think it's going to get worse and worse. And I think the whole thing comes down to the media pushing things for ratings, for more money, and single family, only one parent at home now with a kid. So the kids aren't getting what they need. There's no guidance from the household. There's no guidance from the school. There's,
Well, David, while all of that is true, I don't think it pertains to this particular mass shooting. Maybe with David, what's his name, Nicholas Cruz or whatever his name was down there in Parkland, who killed 17 people there. He was failed by the school superintendent, Runcie. He was failed by the coward of Broward, Scott Peterson, who, unlike the brave sheriff deputy in Ventura County, Ron Hellis, who ran into the building, Scott Peterson quivered and hid. We'll talk more about that later. But this is obviously a PTSD thing and mental illness as well. So I think they're two different things. But that is a separate problem. The lack of family structure, the lack of faith in the home, regardless of what your faith is, that plays a part, and some people go off the rails with that type of action. But in this case, we're dealing with well-documented mental illness, well-documented PTSD, and well-documented cowardice on the part of authorities and mental health people and the VA, who do not want to do anything because they're too afraid to do anything, and they give the old excuse, we can't do anything until he does something. Well, now he's done something, and 12 people are dead. You are listening to The Savage Nation.